A disturbing rumor begins spreading through a remote village. Apparently, a slug-headed demon broke into one family's home and turned the entire place into a bloodbath. In a world where demons eat humans like snacks, that part is sadly nothing new. What makes the story completely insane is what happens a few days later. The demon's severed head is found nailed to the family's front gate, and the person who put it there is not some legendary warrior or veteran demon hunter. It is the family's eldest son, the only survivor of the massacre, and our boy is just 10 years old. Since no normal child should be capable of hunting a demon alone, the terrified villagers reach the most convenient conclusion possible. The kid who saved himself must secretly be a monster too. Sometime later, a demon hunter named Mongrion arrives after receiving the villagers' request. The first thing greeting her is the rotten demon head still hanging in front of the ruined house. The villagers desperately beg her to exterminate the creature hiding inside, claiming a demon must be wearing the skin of a 10-year-old boy. In their minds, even dozens of children could not kill a real demon, and the brutal front gate decoration is all the evidence they need. Mongrion admits that the display is so vicious she almost feels bad for the dead monster. Still, unlike the villagers, she actually bothers to investigate. Inside the property, she finds the supposed monster sitting beside several crude stone graves. His clothes are soaked in dried blood, his body is filthy, and his pitch-black eyes look completely empty. But Mongrion quickly notices that the dirt came from burying his own family. The child has also gone several days without proper food or water, so instead of swinging a weapon at his neck, she places warm porridge in front of him and tells him to eat. The boy is understandably confused. He knows the villagers hired her to kill him, so getting lunch instead of an execution was definitely not on his schedule. Still, he already understands why they hate him. Even before the massacre, his strange, hollow eyes made everyone uncomfortable. Once he killed something they believed was unbeatable, the villagers finally gained the excuse they needed to throw him away. Mongrion studies those supposedly demonic eyes and decides they are nowhere near enough to make him a monster. Since everyone claims this tiny kid killed the Wadu scholar, she sits beside him and asks for the full story. His memories immediately drag him back to that horrible night. Hidden inside a wardrobe, he watched through a narrow gap as the slug-headed creature devoured his family and sprayed blood across the floor. He had no power to fight it then, but after the demon left, the terrified child did something no sane adult would expect. He followed it home. The boy sells everything left from his family's possessions and spends the money gathering information. He learns that the creature is called a Wadu scholar and that demon hunters normally fight it using a bamboo spear packed with salt. Even with the right weapon, killing one is difficult for a trained adult. But this 10-year-old walks into its lair alone anyway. The moment the creature charges, he drives the salt-filled spear straight through its head and ends it on the spot. Mongrion then asks why he went the extra mile by chopping off its head and nailing it to the gate. The kid calmly explains that the demon ate his family's heads, so he simply returned the favor. Fair is fair, apparently. The whole story sounds ridiculous, but Mongrion cannot find a single lie in his eyes. What impresses her most is the terrifying package hidden inside this child. He watched his family die, pursued an enemy far stronger than himself, researched its weakness, and then turned that knowledge into a perfect revenge plan. As far as Mongrion is concerned, this little menace was practically manufactured to hunt demons. Unfortunately, the boy believes his story is already over. With his revenge complete and no family left, he claims there is nothing tying him to the world anymore. All he wants is to die quietly beside their graves. Mongrion answers that depressing speech with a sharp flick to his forehead, then realizes she never even asked his name. The boy introduces himself as Yise, a name that can mean changing world. She calls it a fine name before poking a giant hole in his logic. Did cutting off one demon's head truly repay everything it stole from him? Yise insists that it did, but Mongrion wonders whether he actually believes that or merely forced himself to accept one death as enough. The creature took his family, his home, and even his desire to keep living. One ugly head on a gate seems like a pretty terrible exchange rate. She does not answer the question for him. Instead, she stands up, declares that he is human, and cancels the villagers' request. Before leaving, Mongrion tells Yise to live well, abandoning him with one warm meal and a question that refuses to leave his mind. Back in the village, the residents are furious that Mongrion did not kill their so-called monster. They even offer more money because apparently every moral problem can be fixed by increasing the budget. Mongrion makes it clear that payment was never the issue. No matter how closely she examined Yise, she found a human child, not a demon wearing human skin. When she asks why they hate him so much, the villagers point to his unsettling eyes and claim they always knew he would bring disaster. Their excuse disgusts her. To Mongrion, the real monsters are the grown adults who condemned an orphan simply because he looked different and was difficult for them to understand. She also warns that hatred and resentment create evil karma, and evil karma attracts actual demons. Instead of listening to the professional they hired, one man insists Yise must have summoned the creature that killed his family. That is finally enough to break Mongrion's patience. A horn appears on her head, her eyes glow red, and she warns that anyone who continues tormenting the child will personally answer to her. The villagers nearly fold on the spot when they realize their demon hunter is not human either. Mongryun reveals that she is a dokaibi who works with humans to exterminate demons, although she already knows fools like them will only see another monster. With her warning delivered, she officially cancels the request and leaves. The cowards are far too scared to confront her, but their hatred for Yisei remains fully operational. They decide that if the demon hunter will not protect the village, then they will handle the little monster themselves. That night, a mob marches toward Yisei's ruined home with farming tools and torches. They set the property on fire and laugh about how they should have done it sooner. In their twisted minds, burning everything will make sure Yisei can never remain in the village. The child desperately tries to smother the flames because the crude graves beside the house are all he has left of his family. The villagers do not care. They simply keep screaming for everything to burn. And just like Mongryun warned, their terrible behavior comes with a terrible reward. The hatred pouring from the mob gathers into thick demonic energy. That energy twists their bodies, fills their eyes with red light, and covers them in purple flames. The same people who spent all day calling Yisei a monster end up summoning a genuine one through their own evil karma. Their possessed bodies merge around a gigantic Wadu scholar, and the demon happily repeats the mob's wish to burn everything. Yisei can only stare in disbelief. Another demon has appeared in front of him, and this one destroys the graves where he planned to die. A blast of demonic power sends the tiny kid flying across the ground. As he lies among the burning ruins, Yisei realizes that losing his family was not the end. The demons are now stealing even his final chance to rest beside them. Mongryun's earlier question starts echoing through his head. Did killing one creature really repay his loss, or did he simply convince himself that it was enough? With the corrupted villagers closing in, Yisei grabs what remains of his crude weapon and drags his battered body upright. He attacks even though the difference in power is frankly stupid. The demons strike him, grab him, and tear at him from every direction. But this kid apparently never received the instruction to stay down and throws his axe in the monster's eyes. Covered in blood and running on almost nothing, Yisei finally understands what he truly wants. His revenge will only be finished when every last demon in the world has been exterminated. Sadly, unlocking a lifelong goal does not come with an instant power-up. The demons overwhelm him, and Yisei is seconds away from becoming their next meal when Mongryun suddenly returns. She slices through the attacking creatures, catches the collapsing boy, and admits that watching such a tiny body stand against a demon is genuinely impressive. Compared to him, the adults responsible for this mess are a complete embarrassment. Holding Yisei safely, she explains that resentment and evil karma produce demonic energy, and demonic energy draws demons. That is exactly why she warned the villagers to stop acting like human garbage. Yisei never summoned this new Wadu scholar. Their own hatred did. Mongryun then faces the corrupted mob and coldly orders them to go apologize to the child's dead family. The demons charge together, but Mongryun treats the entire army like an annoying chore. One casual attack tears through the smaller creatures and blasts the giant Wadu scholar apart. The monster desperately tries to recover and lets out a roar loud enough to shake the burning village. Mongryun is not impressed. She complains that the brute is far too noisy and finishes it with one final strike. A storm of power carves the creature into pieces, and by the time the flames begin to settle, every demon in the mob has been exterminated. Yisei lies unconscious nearby, still muttering the same promise through his pain. He is going to exterminate them all. Mongryun looks down at the broken child and decides he made the right choice. The path ahead could eventually turn him into a vengeful fiend, but good days may still find him if he survives long enough to see them. She gently lifts Yisei into her arms and carries him away from the burning remains of the only home he ever knew. Until he becomes strong enough to carry his revenge alone, Mongryun will take care of him. Sometime later, Yisei wakes inside a quiet house while Mongryun sits outside, casually playing with a butterfly, as if the previous night was not complete chaos. The moment his eyes open, the memories come flooding back. He remembers the Wadu scholar, the possessed villagers, and the purple flames consuming the graves he made for his family. Realizing none of it was a nightmare instantly drains the color from his face. Then Yisei notices something strange. He was burned, beaten, and nearly ripped apart, yet every injury has disappeared without leaving a single scar. He thanks Mongryun for saving and treating him, admitting that Dokaibi are an incredible race. Mongryun is more curious about why he remains so calm after discovering what she is. Yisei simply reminds her that she said she was not a demon and has shown him nothing but kindness. That is enough for him. His complete lack of prejudice leaves Mongryun impressed, especially since this 10-year-old is already more reasonable than every adult in his old village combined. Mongryun confirms his name and asks whether he remembers the offer she made before he passed out. She wants Yisei to follow her, learn demon exorcising arts directly from her, and officially become her disciple. Until he grows old and strong enough to survive alone, she will give him a home. More importantly, she promises to provide the strength he needs to carry out his revenge. The deal sounds like everything Yisi could ever want, which is exactly why our suspicious little survivor does not accept immediately. Mongryon laughs at how sharp he is and warns that following her will not mean a comfortable life. His new home lies inside Dokebi territory. Dokebi may be different from demons, but they still possess demonic energy, so any place filled with them is naturally dangerous for a human. To make matters worse, Mongryon claims her teaching is so brutal that every day will feel like hell. Rather than scaring him, the word hell catches Yisi's attention. He likes the sound of it. After all, soft and comfortable training is not going to help him exterminate every demon alive. He accepts Mongryon as his master and promises to follow wherever she leads. Mongryon admits she only made the situation sound terrifying because she wanted to scare him a little. Unfortunately for her, this kid already walked into a demon's lair alone, so regular threats have lost most of their power. Since his decision is final, she places another meal before him and orders him to recover before they leave. She also makes him finish every last bite. Apparently, the entrance exam for demon hunting begins with clearing the dinner table. Ys obeys without complaint, and once his body recovers, the two leave the human world and begin their journey toward the Dokebi village. The deeper they travel into the mountains, the more unsettling the forest becomes. The trees twist into strange shapes, the air grows heavy, and demonic energy fills the entire area. Mongryon leads Yisi along a path protected by a sacred rope and warns him not to take even one step outside it. With his current strength, leaving the protected route would be a one-way trip. Eventually, they reach an enormous gate belonging to a place called Guisu Temple. A sign at the entrance announces that spirits protect the temple and humans are forbidden from entering. Yisei hesitates, but surprisingly, he is not worried about himself. He asks whether Mongryon could be punished for bringing a human into Dokebi territory. She finds it strange that the kid is more concerned about her than the giant forbidden gate in front of him. Mongryon assures him that nobody in Guisu Temple is crazy enough to question the head. Yisei has no clue what that title means, but the gate opens before he can ask. On the other side is a breathtaking settlement that looks nothing like the hostile forest they crossed. Guisu Temple is filled with beautiful buildings, clear water, colorful trees, and countless Dokebi living peacefully together. Yisi can barely believe the view, while the residents can barely believe a human child just walked through their forbidden entrance. Some immediately complain about the intrusion, but the entire crowd goes silent the moment Mongryon speaks. She introduces Yisei, announces that he will learn demon exorcising arts directly from her, and declares him a new member of their family. Just like that, everyone's hostility vanishes. Anyone brought by the head is welcome, and apparently that is the end of the discussion. Yisei finally understands that Mongryon is not some ordinary demon hunter. She is the unquestioned leader of Guisu Temple, and one sentence from her is enough to make an entire village adopt a forbidden human. After the surprisingly peaceful welcome, Mongryon announces that it is time for the most important part of demon hunting. Yisi expects a secret technique, a deadly trial, or at least a sword. Instead, she places him before a table buried under food and orders the cook to bring even more meat. Yisei cannot understand how a feast large enough to feed an army has anything to do with exorcising demons. Mongryon points out the obvious weakness he somehow forgot. He is still a growing child. Children have two sacred duties, eating and sleeping as much as possible. If he fails to build a strong body now, he will regret it when he becomes a real hunter. The explanation instantly makes sense to Yisei. In his mind, this is simply the first stage of creating the perfect demon-killing body. So our boy attacks the food with the same determination he used against the Wadu scholar. The person keeping that mountain of food supplied is a cheerful young Dokebi named Gong-ah. Mongryon tells her to prepare a place for Yisei to stay and, more importantly, make sure he clears the entire table. Yisei finally understands what his master meant by hell. His first punishment is apparently eating until his stomach files a formal complaint. Gong-ah is thrilled to meet the child brought home by the head and immediately grabs him to check whether humans really have no horns. Yisei tells her that he is 10, while Gong-ah proudly announces that she is 22 and therefore far more mature. Another Dokebi quickly ruins her big moment by explaining that humans age about twice as fast as their kind. In practical terms, Gong-ah is only around 1 year older than Yisei. She refuses to let mathematics destroy her authority and proudly declares herself his new big sister anyway. Once Yisei somehow survives the feast, Gong-ah leads him through the village while he struggles to walk with his overfilled stomach. She assures him that young people digest food quickly, which is easy to say when it is not her stomach fighting for its life. Gong-ah then talks about how lucky he is to receive personal training from the head. Every other young Dokebi will be jealous. When Yisei asks whether Mongryon is really that incredible, Gong-ah is shocked that he agreed to follow the woman without knowing her reputation. She explains that Mongryon is a living legend who has hunted demons for more than 300 years. She is probably stronger stronger than every other dokebi in Guisu Temple combined. Yisei suddenly gains a new understanding of the master he chose. Dokebi may resemble humans, but their lifespans and strength operate on an entirely different scale. Even so, Mongrian and Gonga do not feel like the monsters Yisei was taught to fear. Gonga excitedly imagines the famous demon hunter he will become and makes him promise not to forget his big sister after gaining a reputation. Looking at her smile, Yisei realizes there is not much difference between the people of Guisu Temple and ordinary humans. If anything, these supposedly inhuman creatures have shown him more warmth in one day than his birth village offered in 10 years. The feeling is so unfamiliar that it almost makes him uncomfortable, but for the first time since losing his family, Yisei seems to have found a place where people genuinely want him around. Of course, peace cannot last forever. Just as Yisei begins to relax, a group of young dokebi blocks the road and orders the human to stop. Their leader is furious that Yisei entered forbidden territory and somehow received the privilege of learning directly from their extremely busy head. Unlike the friendly residents at the gate, these guys arrive carrying enough jealousy to power the whole village. They suggest having a private conversation with the new kid. Gong-ah nervously recognizes them as Ilchui, Woljang, and members of Gogol's gang, which makes one thing very clear: trouble has officially arrived. Yisei does not look scared. After growing up around humans who hated him for being different, threatening eyes and cruel smiles are much more familiar than kindness. Even in this strange new home, our boy has finally encountered the kind of people he already knows exactly how to handle. Gong-ah angrily demands to know why Ilchui and his friends are attacking Yisei. Ilchui claims nobody is bullying anyone because sparring is perfectly normal at Guisu Temple. According to him, he is merely showing the human the enormous gap between them. If Yisei cannot survive a fight against a kid his own age, then he has no business learning demon exercising arts and challenging real monsters. It almost sounds like Ilchui is doing him a favor, but inside, the reason is nowhere near that noble. Mongrian is the head of Guisu Temple and the hero every young dokebi admires. Yet instead of teaching Ilchui, she brought home some mysterious human and personally chose him as her disciple. Ilchui cannot understand what makes Yisei so special, and that jealousy has turned his helpful lesson into a very enthusiastic beating. Even after being knocked down, Yisei slowly drags himself back up. Gongya tries to step in, but our battered boy surprises everyone by apologizing to her. Since he spent his childhood surrounded by people who hated him, he assumed the group had dragged him away simply to bully the outsider. Now that Ilchui has explained this is training, Yisei claims he misunderstood the situation. The response completely catches Ilchui off guard. The human is bruised, bleeding, and barely standing, yet he neither complains nor asks Gonga to save him. Worse, he does not look afraid. That calm expression irritates Ilchui more than any insult could. He announces that he only held back because Yisei looked fragile enough to die from one serious punch. Since the human is acting so confident, Ilchui decides it is time to make the difference between them painfully clear. What follows is less of a spar and more of a scheduled demolition. Yisei cannot match a dokebi's strength, speed, or experience, and every exchange sends him straight back to the ground. However, Ilchui slowly realizes something is wrong. Whenever a fist approaches Yisei's face, the boy never closes his eyes. Most people instinctively flinch before getting hit, especially after receiving this many free samples. Yisei keeps watching until the last possible second. He is not simply enduring the attacks, he is studying every one of them. After taking blow after blow, he notices that Ilchui follows a pattern. Once Yisei understands the rhythm, he predicts the next strike, slips past it, and finally creates an opening for a counterattack. His fist falls just short, proving Mongrian was right about his tiny body needing more food and growth. Still, the near hit confirms something important. The gap between them may be huge, but it is not impossible to calculate. Yisei then asks whether Ilchui's full name is Gong Ilchui. Once the dokebi confirms it, Yisei calmly requests that he never hold back again simply because an opponent looks weak. A real demon will not offer that kind of mercy, so training based on pity is useless. Then, after getting folded across the training ground, this mad child asks Ilchui to spar with him again sometime. Everyone is stunned. Yisei did not land one clean hit, yet he treats the loss like a book filled with useful information. The strange encounter ends, and he returns to Mongrian looking absolutely terrible on the first day of his new life. Gonga has already reported that Ilchui and the others bullied him, though Yisei continues calling it sparring. Mongrian takes one look at his swollen face and points out that normal practice does not usually leave someone looking like he lost an argument with a mountain. Mongrian pulls Yisei closer and heals him with the same green energy she used on his burns. She explains that children fighting while growing up is natural, but if the others go too far, he must come directly to her. Then she asks the question she really cares about. Did he hit Ilchui even once? Yisei assures her that there is nothing to worry about because every one of his attacks missed. He also admits that, as someone being cared for by Guisu Temple, he did not want to create problems for the people sheltering him. That answer annoys Mongrian more than the bruises. She grabs his face, calls him an irritating little wretch, and reminds reminds him how she introduced him at the gate. She never called him a guest, a burden, or a charity project. She called him family. If Yisei truly accepts that place, he needs to stop behaving as if everyone is doing him a favor by allowing him to exist. After Yisei promises to remember, Mongrian clears up another misunderstanding. Ilchui was not untouchable only because Yisei was weak or because the others feared offending the head. During the serious part of their exchange, Yisei genuinely could not reach him. Ilchui already has enough martial prowess to spar with adult Dokaibi. Yisei naturally assumes that means the boy can hunt demons, but Mongrian says he would almost certainly die if he tried. The logic sounds backward. Yisei killed a low-grade Wadu scholar despite being weaker than Ilchui. Meanwhile, Ilchui can beat Yisei all day but would still be helpless against a dangerous demon. Mongrian uses that contradiction to teach him the foundation of demon exorcising arts. A proper demon hunter needs two things, knowledge and martial prowess. Yisei defeated the Wadu scholar because he learned its weakness was salt and built his entire plan around that fact. Ilchui has plenty of strength, but without understanding his enemy, a powerful demon could kill him before that strength mattered. Yisei has the opposite problem. His mind can identify weaknesses and create plans, but his body is too small and underdeveloped to carry them out reliably. Without extraordinary luck, he would die before reaching the important part of the strategy. Knowledge creates an opportunity to win. Martial prowess allows the hunter to seize it. Only someone who develops both is qualified to continue learning demon exorcising arts. Once the lesson sinks in, Mongrian gives Yisei his first official assignments. 1 week later, Gonga finds him buried behind an absurd mountain of books. Since receiving Mongrian's instructions, Yisei has done almost nothing except read and train. Gonga asks whether he is bored and offers to play with him as his big sister. Yisei politely refuses because there are already not enough hours in the day. Mongrian will not let him practice demon exorcism until he completes both tasks. To have his knowledge recognized, he must read every single book in the entire library. Gonga stares at the endless shelves and decides she would rather bite her own tongue than attempt such torture. Yisei, on the other hand, actually likes reading. The assignment is difficult because the library is enormous, not because he hates the work. So while Gong-ah questions his sanity, our little bookworm calmly continues absorbing every piece of information Guisu Temple has collected about demons. The books, however, cannot explain why Yisei keeps returning with fresh bruises. He reveals that his second assignment is to have his martial prowess recognized by winning a sparring match. Naturally, Mongrian chooses the most reasonable opponent possible, the Dokaibi who just used him as a punching bag. Since receiving the task, Yisei has challenged Ilchui every day. Ilchui is baffled and increasingly furious. He complains that he cannot kill the human and never agreed to become his personal training dummy. Yisei innocently reminds him that killing is not supposed to happen during a spar anyway. Even Gong-ah wonders whether Mongrian is being serious. A human beating a Dokaibi through physical combat sounds impossible, especially when Ilchui can already fight adults. Yisei refuses to use impossibility as an excuse. Sparring exists to prepare someone for real combat, and a demon will not politely leave him alone because he does not feel ready. Ilchui warns the human not to mistake restraint for weakness and threatens to break every bone in his body. Gong-ah instantly steps between them and tells him to stop frightening Yisei, making Ilchui even more jealous. From his perspective, this human invader is now hiding behind the girl whose attention once belonged to their group. But Yisei steps around Gong-ah and promises not to blame Ilchui even if his bones break. Then he asks for another match. At this point, Ilchui reaches the only logical conclusion available. The human is completely insane. No matter how many times Yisei gets knocked down, he returns the next day with the same greeting and the same request to spar. Day after day, Ilchui defeats him. Yisei ignores every warning, absorbs every painful lesson, and keeps returning without landing a single hit. Ilchui tells himself the human has no talent and should have quit long ago. A regular human cannot defeat a Dokaibi, so all this effort must be meaningless. Yet Yisei's eyes continue to bother him. Even while losing, they never seem fixed only on the opponent standing in front of him. They look past Ilchui as though Yisei can already see a future victory nobody else believes exists. That feeling crawls under Ilchui's skin and pushes him to train harder too. He pounds practice dummies and refuses to relax while his rival keeps improving. Gong-ah's smile and Mongrian's recognition are things he wants for himself, and he refuses to let an outsider steal either one. Still, Ilchui remains certain that Yisei's talent can never enter the same league as his own. Before another match, Ilchui silently swears that Yisei's fist will never reach him as long as the human lives. Then the seasons begin to change. 1 full year passes, and the two boys face each other on the same training ground while autumn leaves drift around them. Their friends watch with stunned expressions as the impossible finally happens. Ilchui staggers backward, clutching his cheek and struggling to understand what just struck him. Across the field stands an older, taller, and visibly stronger Yisei with one fist still extended. For an entire year, he read, trained his body, endured defeat, memorized attack patterns, and challenged the same wall every day. Now the punch Ilchui swore would never touch him has finally landed. Ilchui is furious that the human he once defeated without effort has punched him in the face. Refusing to accept reality, he charges and threatens to kill Yisei, but the rest of the match only becomes more humiliating. Yis calmly avoids every attack thrown at him. Ilchui trained hard during the past year, so he cannot understand how Yis improved this much in the same amount of time. The difference is that Yis is no longer moving through desperate instinct. After a year of studying, conditioning, and fighting the same opponent every day, he finally understands Mongrion's lesson about combining knowledge with martial prowess. Most demons possess bodies far stronger than any human. No matter how hard an ordinary person trains, the body eventually reaches a limit that pure effort cannot cross. If demon hunting were nothing more than a strength contest, humanity would be on the menu forever. Knowledge is what creates a path across that impossible gap. By studying an opponent's habits, identifying vital points, and choosing each movement carefully, a weaker hunter can build a route to victory. Yisi proves the idea against Ilchui. After losing to him countless times, he has memorized every attack pattern and tiny habit. He slips around the same strikes that once hit him without fail and aims only for openings that actually matter. Of course, knowledge alone cannot punch someone in the face. A hunter may understand every weakness, but that information is useless if the body cannot move quickly enough or reach the target. That is where martial prowess comes in. Yisi spent the year strengthening the fragile body that caused his first counterattack to fall short. He repeated the same lessons until observation, judgment, and movement became instinctive. When his mind tells him where to strike, his body can now deliver the answer without hesitation. Only by developing both abilities can a human realistically hunt demons. Yisi proves he crossed that first threshold by completely overwhelming Ilchui. Gong-ah can barely believe he defeated the Dokebi after only 1 year, especially since the result is not even close. Ilchui ends the match flat on his back, while Yisei remains standing over him. Afterward, Gong-ah follows Yisi through Guisu Temple while loudly explaining how amazing he has become. Yisi dryly points out that she is the amazing one for somehow talking without taking a break. Their peaceful walk ends when they notice Mongrion preparing to leave with a large group of armed Dokaebi. Yisei asks where they are going, and Mongrion realizes she never explained one of her duties as head. To protect Guisu Temple's alliance with the human world, she leads a regular demon hunt every year. By helping humans suffering from demon attacks, the Dokaebi prove their race can be trusted. Yais finally understands why Mongrion arrived at his village on the night of the Wadu Scholar incident. Saving him was not part of some random trip. She discovered him during the previous year's extermination mission. Before leaving, Mongrion asks whether Yisei has made progress on his assignments. To everyone's surprise, Ilchui suddenly throws an arm around him and reports the result himself. He admits Yisei defeated him in a spar, calls the human impressive, and promises to train harder so he can win next time. Yisei is almost more shocked by the friendly behavior than by the actual victory. Ilchui even uses his name instead of calling him human, which makes the sudden affection feel deeply suspicious. Mongrion, however, is delighted. She worried the two boys would never get along, and she praises Ilchui for becoming mature enough to acknowledge his younger brother. Ilchui accepts the compliment with a proud smile, while Gong-ah realizes that earning his rival's respect may have been the real reward behind Mongrion's assignment. The reconciliation also reveals that Yisi has not spent the entire year alone with books. Gogol happily says he is glad Ilchui finally realizes what a good kid Yisi is. Ilchui immediately demands to know when those two became friends, and Gogol casually admits it happened more than half a year ago. He only pretended they were not close whenever Ilchui was around because their big brother seemed to hate the human. Ilchui accuses Yisei of somehow seducing the pure-hearted Gogol, then suddenly invites him to come play with the group. Gong-ah instantly volunteers to join, but Ilchui announces that the day is for brothers and girls are forbidden. When she asks who invented such a stupid rule, he proudly reveals that he did because he felt like it. Gong-ah answers the nonsense with a straight punch, but beneath the comedy, one thought quietly moves Yisei. Ilchui just called him a brother. Unfortunately, Ilchui's version of playing is apparently a felony. That night, while Mongrion and the adult hunters are away, he leads Yisi and the others into Guisu Temple's weapon storage. Yisi nervously asks whether children are even allowed inside, but Ilchui expertly ignores the question and orders him to choose a weapon. He also returns to calling Iza human, proving that one emotional breakthrough cannot cure a year-long habit overnight. Once everyone is armed, Ilchui reveals the real game. They will leave Guisu Temple and settle their rivalry through a demon hunt. Whoever kills a demon first wins. Yisi immediately reminds him that Mongrion expressly forbade them from leaving the temple before adulthood. Ilchui argues that they are not entering the forest without a target. Earlier, adults returning from patrol reported hearing a newborn baby crying nearby. He assumes the sound belongs to a child ghost, a foolish demon that sometimes wanders close to Guisu Temple. The creature should be weak enough for a group of trained young Dokaebi to handle. Yisei refuses to identify a monster from one sound. His reading taught him that more than 10 kinds of demons can imitate a crying infant, and several of them could erase this whole whole group before breakfast. Hunting without confirmed information is not bravery, it is volunteering to become a warning in the next edition of the encyclopedia. Ilchui dismisses the concern as Yisei showing off because he read a few books. Yisei still refuses, explaining that he cannot disobey the head's command regardless of the creature's identity. Ilchui immediately calls him a coward and accuses him of hiding behind Mongryun because he is scared. If Yisei will not come, the others will conduct the hunt without him. Gogol and the rest eagerly follow their big brother, leaving Ys with no good choice. He cannot physically stop all of them, and allowing several inexperienced children to enter the forest alone would be even worse. In the end, he follows, not because Ilchui's playground insult damaged his pride, but because somebody with common sense needs to be present when this terrible plan inevitably collapses. As they move through the dark forest, the young Dokaebi treat the expedition like an exciting test of courage. Ilchui's demon hunter blood is boiling, and the massive spiked club on his shoulder makes him feel capable of crushing hundreds of child ghosts. He has always wanted to kill a demon before reaching adulthood, and believes this is a necessary trial for becoming a true hunter. The others excitedly decide that completing the mission will make all of them official demon hunters too. Their confidence keeps growing until they notice the simple hand axe in Ys's grip. Ilchui mocks the weapon and reminds him that they came to hunt a demon, not collect firewood. Ilchui also teases Yisei for supposedly seeing a demon for the first time. According to him, no monster could frighten a dokebi who touched a demon corpse as a little child. The boast perfectly shows the difference between them. Ilchui believes familiarity and strength make him prepared. Yisei understands that neither matters if they do not know what they are fighting. He stops arguing and silently reviews the information in his mind. If the creature is truly a child ghost, it should resemble a child and mainly trouble humans with unreasonable demands. In that case, Ilchui's martial prowess will probably be more than enough. Sadly for these overconfident kids, something far worse than a child ghost is waiting deep inside the forest. The group wanders around for a while without finding anything. Ilchui cannot understand where the creature went because patrol members definitely heard crying in this area. With no child ghost in sight, Yisei suggests returning to Guisu Temple. Ilchui immediately treats the reasonable idea like a personal attack. He assumes Yisei wants to retreat because one sparring victory made him arrogant enough to look down on everyone else. Yisei quickly calms the walking pride bomb by explaining that one win does not make him stronger. During their final match, Ilchui was caught off guard because he never expected Yisei to land an attack. If the dokebi had prepared properly, defeating him would have been much harder. The compliment works almost too well. Yisei adds that after sparring with Ilchui for an entire year, he knows exactly how extraordinary the boy's physical abilities and fist and kick techniques are. Ilchui starts blushing and proudly agrees that the human has an excellent eye for a runt. Convinced he misunderstood Yisei, he officially offers him a place in the group's sworn brotherhood. Yisei's guarded expression immediately melts into a warm, innocent smile. He happily asks whether this means Ilchui will truly become his big brother, admitting that he always wanted one. The sincerity catches Ilchui completely unprepared. A second ago, Yisei was his irritating rival. Now the human suddenly looks like the most adorable little brother in the forest, and Ilchui's brain needs a moment to process the transformation. Their wholesome moment lasts about 5 seconds before a baby's cry echoes through the trees. Ilchui instantly forgets every warning and charges toward the sound, declaring that whoever catches the child ghost first gets to keep it. He tells his new youngest brother to stay behind while he demonstrates how impressive a big brother can be. Yis and the others chase after him, but the closer they get, the less their target resembles easy prey. Ilchui asks Woljang to confirm that a child ghost is supposed to look like a baby. Technically, the creature ahead does have an infant's face. The small problem is that it has far more than one. Countless baby heads cover its massive body, with some crying, others laughing, and the rest staring through empty eyes. Yisei recognizes the danger first and screams for everyone to run. This thing is definitely not a child ghost. Before the group can escape, the creature launches its many heads outward on long, fleshy tendrils. Yisei raises the round shield he took from storage and barely protects himself, but the others brought confidence instead of defense. The snapping heads slam into them, bite into their bodies, and throw everyone across the forest floor. One tears into Ilchui's shoulder before he can properly swing the giant club that was supposedly going to crush hundreds of weak demons. Within moments, every child is injured, and their exciting forbidden adventure has transformed into a massacre. Yisei desperately searches the information stored in his memory. Guisu Temple ranks demons across 9 risk levels, but those numbers are not based on how often hunters kill the creatures. They are based on how often hunters survive meeting them. Levels 9 through 7 are considered low grade. A rookie demon hunter has about a 90% chance of surviving a risk 9 creature, 80% against risk 8, and 70% against risk 7. 7, but the moment a demon reaches level 6, it enters the mid-grade category and the survival rate falls off a cliff. A rookie facing a risk level 6 demon has only a 20% chance of returning alive. The creature attacking them is a risk level 6 mid-grade monster known as the Wailing Dragon Demon. Even officially recognized demon hunters survive an encounter only 2 times out of 10. Ys and his companions are not recognized hunters. They are wounded children who sneaked outside the protection of Guisu Temple because Ilchui heard a baby crying. Their real odds are probably too depressing to calculate. The beast advances while Yisi faces the exact danger he warned them about. The sound never belonged to a child ghost. Unless he finds the best possible answer immediately, the entire group will die before Mongrian even realizes they are gone. The others finally understand how badly Ilchui's plan has failed. A tendril remains attached to his wounded arm, and he trembles while admitting that real demons are far more disgusting and terrifying than any story described. Worse, he knows this happened because he insisted on leaving Guisu Temple. Gogol suffers the most serious injury. One of the attacks tore open his stomach, and he is losing blood far too quickly. Without immediate treatment, he will not survive. The group cannot defeat the Wailing Dragon Demon. Unfortunately, running while carrying a dying friend does not look possible either. After calculating every option, Yisei announces the only answer he can find. They must leave Gogol behind and run. The others stare at him as though he has become the monster. Ilchui demands to know how Yisei can say something so cruel about the friend who welcomed him before anyone else. But Yisei refuses to comfort them with a lie. Gogol's wound is fatal, and even if they somehow carry him out, he will die before reaching Guisu Temple. More importantly, Yisei notices that the Wailing Dragon Demon has stopped attacking. The creature could finish all of them whenever it wanted. If it is patiently waiting, then it wants something more than a quick meal. According to the Demon Encyclopedia, Wailing Dragon Demons find prey filled with negative emotions especially delicious. The monster has created a choice designed to produce the maximum amount of despair. The children can abandon their friend, leaving Gogol to feel betrayed while the survivors drown in guilt, or they can stay together and die in terror. Either option gives the demon exactly the emotions it wants. Yisi understands the trap perfectly, but knowledge does not magically create a painless third choice. Sacrificing Gogol and giving the beast what it wants is still the only path that offers everyone else even a small chance to live. Gogol remains conscious enough to understand the discussion. His stomach hurts unbearably, and he is terrified of dying. Even so, he calls Ilchui his brother and refuses to let everyone else be killed because of him. With tears in their eyes, the group prepares to escape. They leave Gogol on the ground, offer a broken apology, and activate an explosive bundle that fills the forest with blinding light. The flash briefly hides their movements from the Wailing Dragon Demon, allowing the surviving children to sprint away. Ilchui runs despite his injuries, crying for Gogol and silently promising that he will make the monster pay. Once Gogol realizes everyone has left, he forces himself to accept their choice. This is better than allowing his friends to die beside him. His final thoughts contain no hatred toward them. He wants Yisei to forget revenge and focus only on surviving. Then the Wailing Dragon Demon crawls from the darkness behind him. Its tendrils wrap around his helpless body, drag him into the mass of faces, and swallow him into the creature's flesh. What Gogol does not know is that Ys never went far. Our boy is hiding behind a nearby tree, trembling as he forces himself to watch exactly what the demon does to the friend they sacrificed. A new face slowly pushes out from the Wailing Dragon Demon's body. It has Gogol's hair, horns, and terrified eyes, but the words coming from its mouth do not match the acceptance he showed moments earlier. The face accuses the others of being cruel, asks how they could abandon him when they promised to escape together, and warns Yisi to wait because it will come visit him soon. Back inside Guisu Temple, combat Dokaebi rush through the streets carrying torches. The commotion wakes Gong-ah, who quickly asks Chanmo what is happening. She learns that Ilchui, Woljang, Gogol, and Yisei have all disappeared and nobody can find them anywhere inside the village. The combat Dokaebi already informed Mongrian and began searching outside the temple grounds. Gong-ah immediately remembers Ilchui inviting Yisei to play before proudly declaring that the day was for brothers only. Realizing the boys must have left Guisu Temple that very night, she looks into the darkness and quietly begs all 4 of them to return safely. Meanwhile, Yisi runs through the forest while reviewing the choice he made. Fighting the Wailing Dragon Demon with their wounded group would have ended in total annihilation. Even if Gogol had to be sacrificed, saving the other 3 would leave them with a chance to kill the creature later. Yisi compares the situation to the night his family died. Charging a powerful demon in blind anger would accomplish nothing except adding his own body to the pile. The most useful option was to keep the monster in sight, observe what it did to Gogol, and learn enough to track its lair for future revenge. From a cold, logical perspective, Yisi made the best judgment available. Unfortunately, good logic does not make the guilt hurt any less. Yise remembers how Gogol secretly approached him before the others. The young dokebi apologized for pretending they were not friends whenever Ilchui was nearby and promised everyone would eventually realize Yise was a good person. Gogol became one of his first real friends in Guisu Temple, yet Yise deliberately left him behind to die. The decision makes him hate himself. Still, he refuses to let that guilt erase his reason. Instead, he directs every piece of hatred toward the real cause. To Yise, this suffering exists because demons exist. Gogol's death does not weaken his vow to exterminate them. It makes that vow even stronger. His thoughts are interrupted when an enormous patrol officer finds him in the forest. The dokebi introduces himself as Guicheon, a combat specialist responsible for eliminating demons that appear near Guisu Temple. He immediately scolds Yise for the chaos the children created and warns that Mongrayon is going to punish them horribly when she returns. The lecture stops the moment he asks where the others are. Yise reports that they encountered a wailing dragon demon, became separated from Ilchui and Woljang during the escape, and watched Gogol get eaten. When Guicheon asks what the beast looks like, Yise describes a horse-shaped creature covered with countless faces. Guicheon immediately rushes toward the danger and orders Yise to return to the temple alone. That reaction makes Yise suspect the patrol officer does not actually recognize the name Wailing Dragon Demon. He warns Guicheon that the creature is a mid-grade threat and recommends waiting for support. Guicheon waves away the concern and proudly announces that he ranks among the top 5 dokebi in monstrous physical strength. In other words, the man heard the survival rate was 20% and decided his muscles were excellent mathematics. Yise still refuses to leave. He remembers the location of the attack, and finding Ilchui and Woljang matters more than protecting himself. Guicheon reluctantly allows him to follow, but orders him to run the moment they see the creature. Elsewhere, Ilchui and Woljang have placed a considerable distance between themselves and the first battlefield. Ilchui hopes they ran far enough to escape the Wailing Dragon Demon, but Woljang cannot accept that they might be the only survivors. Gogol is almost certainly dead, and the thought tears through both brothers. Ilchui insists they could have saved him if everyone stayed and fought together. Rather than face his own reckless decision, he blames Yise for confusing them with warnings and convincing the group to run. Woljang tries to remind him that without Yise, none of them would have survived the first attack. Ilchui refuses to listen. Escaping feels disgraceful to him, both as a future demon hunter and as Gogol's sworn brother. In his grief, dying beside Gogol now seems more honorable than living after abandoning him. Then another baby's cry sounds nearby, and an actual child ghost appears. This is the weak creature they expected from the beginning. Ilchui smashes it with his spiked club and uses the easy victory to feed his anger. If Yise had not clouded his judgment, he convinces himself perhaps the Wailing Dragon Demon could have been beaten just as easily. One successful hit against the tutorial monster, and this kid immediately rewrites the entire night in his head. Ilchui vows to kill every demon and avenge Gogol. Unfortunately, the Wailing Dragon Demon has already followed the trail of negative emotions directly to them. It attacks from the darkness before either boy can react, leaving only Woljang's lifeless body on the ground. With both younger brothers apparently dead, Ilchui throws away every remaining piece of caution. He grips his club and charges, swearing to crush the beast for what it did. The Wailing Dragon Demon welcomes his rage. Unfortunately for him, reality hits like a truck. The demon can easily swallow him whole. Before the monster can finish him, Guicheon arrives like an oversized missile and blasts it away with a devastating kick. He roars that no demon has the right to touch a child of Guisu Temple. Then he orders Yise to take Ilchui and stay behind while a professional handles the fight. Yise catches Ilchui and admits he is relieved to find him alive. Then the creature switches strategies. Gogol's and Woljang's faces stretch out from its body and cry toward Guicheon, asking why their uncle is hurting them. They beg him to stop and insist they are still alive inside the monster. Guicheon knows those faces belong to the demon. He understands that crushing them is the only way to destroy the creature, but the copies carry the children's voices, memories, and emotions. They remind him that he promised to teach them staff techniques and claim they waited a long time for that day. Guicheon's certainty begins to crack. He angrily accuses the monster of pretending to be the boys, yet his hands stop applying the force needed to finish it. That single moment of hesitation is all the Wailing Dragon Demon needs. This is how the Wailing Dragon Demon truly hunts. After consuming countless victims, it learned that every creature with a heart shares the same weakness. Powerful emotions make people lose sight of their objective and cloud their judgment. By copying the faces and memories of the dead, the demon fills its targets with grief, guilt, anger, or false hope. Their strength weakens, their will to fight collapses, and the monster devours them. The method has worked on every opponent it ever encountered, including a combat dokebi ranked among the strongest residents of Guisu Temple. But this time, one abnormal child stands among its prey. Yise feels the pain of losing Gogol and understands exactly why the copied faces disturb Guicheon. He gives Guicheon the only fact that matters in this moment. Those faces belong to the enemy. He commands the adult to snap out of it because the thing standing before them is a demon. This boy is cold.